Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another tag video. I'm doing a tag. Yes, sort of, kind of, because, well, let's start with the beginning. It's the Mookse and the Gripes bucket list book tag. It was created by Shawn, Shawn the Book Maniac, and he also tagged me, and I think he created it 2 months ago or something. I will leave a link to his original video down below, of course. And he came up with the idea when he interviewed or when he talked to Paul in one of his book-sized, bite-sized book chats. I will leave a link to the playlist of all the bite-sized book chats down below, and they are fabulous. If you're not familiar, Shawn talks to various people he meets on Goodreads or Twitter, so not booktubers most of the time, about a particular book. And it's fantastic. He always has 3 or 4 people in one episode, and yeah, I love it. But anyway, one of his guests was Paul, and Shawn learned that Paul is part of the Mookse and the Gripes podcast website. He started it together with Trevor, but now there are many more people involved in the website, in the reviews. They write reviews and they have a podcast, and in one of the podcasts, they made a bucket list. And the bucket list, as you all know, is stuff that you want to do before you kick the bucket. And for this tag, Shawn made it 10 books you want to read absolutely before you kick the bucket. Well, Shawn, I hope you forgive me because I'm going to butcher this tag and make it into something that I want to do anyway. And please don't be mad at me. But I don't have bucket lists of books, I have to admit. I tried to do the tag. I tried to do it once, I think twice or 3 times, and it didn't work for me because I don't have these kind of lists. I can't wait. I'm an impatient person. So if I want to read a book, if I think it's that important that I have to read it before I die, I'm going to read it now. And very few books now at my age are still so important that I haven't read yet that I think I need to read before I die. So that's what you get. When you get older, you hopefully have read all the bucket list books in your 40s or 50s. Anyway, but what I do have is books that have been lingering on my TBR for a long, long time. And I picked 10 books that I thought about reading and just didn't, it didn't come. I didn't read. I'm not even making sense, but I just didn't read them. And in a lot of the bucket list tag videos, people would ask the viewer to choose 1 or 2 books, and they would prioritize it. And I sort of combined this with my TBR. So my bucket list is 10 books that have been on my TBR for quite a long time, that I haven't gotten around to reading, and I want you to choose for me. So vote for 1 book, vote for 2 books. In the show notes, you find all the books in alphabetical order with letters, so you can also make a whole list of all 10 books in, the letters in a sort of order. You can also only choose 1 book. And you don't have to have read the book. I mean, if you have read one of the books and you love it and you want me to read it, of course. But that's not a requirement for me. If you like the cover, if you like the title, if you like what you hear me talk about, it doesn't really matter. If you like the color of the cover and you think, I should read it. So whatever kind of reason you have to choose 1 or 2 or 3 books that I should read, let me know down in the comments. And I will read the 2 books with the most votes, 1 in November and 1 in December. So let's get started. The first book, and they are all, oh, by the way, they are all fiction, because if you follow my channel, you know by now that for the last couple of months, I have a bit of an issue with finding fiction. And I think this will help me stick with the book if you choose for me, because I feel accountable. I have to report back. Anyway, so the first book is Claire Adam, A Golden Child. That is a relatively new release, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check. Yeah, 2019. And I picked this book up. I wanted to read it for Caribathon, and it didn't happen. It's a story set in Trinidad. A family with two boys, a 13-year-old, and one of the boys, Paul, goes missing. And then the father and the other son start looking for the missing boy. That's all I know. If you think you like the cover, the name of the author, the title, or the story, let me know. The second one was a present from Shawn, who also tagged me, and whose tag I'm butchering here. And that is Tony Kate Bambara, The Salt Eaters, published, I think, in the 1980s. Thank you again, Shawn, for giving me this as a birthday present this year. Shawn and I read Tony Kate Bambara's Gorilla My Love, a short story collection earlier this year, and Bambara was a Black American author. I had never read her before that short story collection, and I really enjoyed her style, and so Shawn gifted me the novel, and it's about a woman, Velma, who tried to commit suicide, didn't work, and she's has to heal, and there's a healer and something with salt, because salt heals you, and it's set in 1970, I believe. I don't know whether that is true, but it's set in the South. Yeah, so if that appeals to you for whatever reason, let me know. The third one is one of the books that I think I have on my TBR since it came out in 2009, so that's more than 10 years, and that's Sarah Hall, How to Paint a Dead Man. Sarah Hall is an English writer, and she's one of those writers, I have never read anything by her after not reading this one, that I always felt I want to explore, and then nothing comes of it. This book appealed to me. It was not her debut or anything, but it appealed to me because it's about art. You have a dying artist who paints his last picture, and then the story spans 40 years. Many years later, a dead young woman visits his grave, and then you have an art curator and a landscape artist, and their stories all converge. And you know me, I'm always, if I see on the blurb the book is about art or an artist, I will buy it. So let me know. The next one is also by an author, like How to Paint a Dead Man, that I always feel I need to read, and then somehow never really happens, and that is Nicole Krauss. And this is The History of Love, first published in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. But as always, you find the correct dates in the show notes. And if you just love the publication date, that's also a good enough reason to choose the book. This one is about Leo, a writer, an old man in New York who survived the Holocaust and who had fallen in love and then lost his love. And on the other side of the city, there's a young girl, 14-year-old Alma, and her mother is very lonely and she wants to do something about it. And then there is this book, and somehow the stories of these people are connected. And it's about a big city, but also about love and connectedness. And it's about a writer. It's like with How to Paint a Dead Man. When I read on the blurb that one of the protagonists is a writer or an artist, that all immediately, makes me want to buy the book, and I buy the book. And yeah, it also makes me want to read it, but then I don't for some reason. So this one. Then the next one is also present from Shawn, and that is Helen Humphrey's Machine Without Horses. And for this one, I have to look up 2018. Helen Humphrey's, we read a book together, Shawn and I really loved. I read two more of hers, and I really loved her writing. She's a Canadian artist, and so Shawn sent me this one and another one because he didn't really want to keep them or didn't get along with them. And this one, Machine Without Horses, I mean, look at the title. I love the title. That's a reason to pick it, isn't it? But it's about a fly fish dresser woman who actually existed, and making these little fly fish thingies that you put on, and then I'm not a fly fisher, but that sounded so fascinating. And the life of that woman, I looked her up, and of course I'm blanking on the name now. Never mind. It sounded interesting. So maybe you want to pick this one. And the next one is also a gift by Amelia, who used to be a regular commenter, but sort of is now so busy that she doesn't have time to comment on it anymore, at least not on my videos. And that's Catherine Lacey, obviously. The answers. It's not something wrong with the camera. It's I hate that kind of design. Ugh. But that doesn't mean that you can choose the book. I read a previous book by Catherine Lacey, Nobody's Ever Missing, which I quite liked, and so Amelia gifted me this one, and it's more a futuristic novel about a woman who is really very sick, who needs expensive treatment in the future, and there is some sort of futuristic expensive treatment, but she can't pay for it, and then she answers an ad for being a girlfriend for this rich guy, and not the only girlfriend, because he has assigned types of girlfriends to various women. So there is the emotional attachment girlfriend, then there is the intellectual girlfriend, there is the needy girlfriend, anyway, and then plot ensues from there. If that appeals to you, despite the really horrendously ugly cover, you can pick Catherine Lacey, The Answers. The next one is a book that I remember exactly where and when I bought it, in a bookstore in Maastricht, and I saw the cover and the title and thought that sounds interesting, and that was also some years ago, because this book was published in 2000. Again, let me check, 2017, and I bought it when it was just a new release, so 4 years ago. Refuge by Dina Nayeri, an American-Iranian author, and 2 years after this one, she published a memoir, The Ungrateful Immigrant or something, which I also have on my TBR, but I haven't bought the book. I'm not allowed to buy a book by an author if I hadn't read the previous book. That's some sort of rule I often break, but this time I didn't. Anyway, so this one is a cover that Adam from Memento Mori must absolutely find disgusting, because it has fruit and color. But the book is about a woman who immigrated from Iran to the US as a young girl. Her father stayed behind, and then over the course of 20 years, they have only contact, infrequent visits, and she the woman goes from the immigrant to an overachiever, really successful, and it's about their relationship. And because it's set partly in Amsterdam, because the main protagonist also has some connection with Europe, I thought, oh, Amsterdam, refugees, that is something that I might be interested in, so I picked up the book, and then I never read it. Next, we have a modern classic, Flannery O'Connor, Wise Blood. Flannery O'Connor, born in 1925. I have a difficult relation with Flannery O'Connor. First of all, she was a devout Catholic, and if you follow my channel at all, that's not my thing. She had also, if you read her diaries and what she in letters, she was had quite a racist streak. I read a couple of her short stories because she's also known for her short stories, and she's a brilliant writer, but I never read a novel, and this is one of her novels. It's about Hazel, a young man, and it sounds wild because he goes on this search for something, religion, probably, devout Catholic, and then he founds a church without Christ, and he meets people who have foresight, and it sounded wild, religious but wild. So I thought, and I have to admit, shallow as I am, I really like the cover. So I thought, why not, despite my misgivings, why not give her a try? And she wrote it in the beginning of the 50s, 1952. So yeah, why not? The next one is another short story collection. Carol Shields dressing up for the Carnival. Carol Shields is a writer that I really, really love. Sorry about the abrupt ending, the doorbell. More books to come. Anyway, what was I? Yes, I really, really love Carol Shields' work, and she's one of those writers that I want to be a completist, so read everything she ever published. She died in 2003. She was an American-born Canadian writer, and I think her book, Stone Diaries, is absolutely fantastic. It's one of my all-time favorite books. I read a short story collection by her, Various Miracles, together with Shawn, whom I mention now all the time so that he's sort of appeased with me butchering his tag. I love that collection as well, or I really liked it. There were stories in there that didn't quite work for me, as always, and this is another of her short story collections. So I already showed you and like I said, I'm a completist. I still have, I think, 5 novels or something to go, and 2 or 3 short story collections. So yes, Carol Shields. And the last one is more or less a reread, and that is Elizabeth von Arnhem Vera, published in the 1920s, is it? Again, I'm so ill-prepared that I have to look that up. 21, yes. And Elizabeth von Arnhem, despite the very German-sounding von Arnhem name, is actually an English writer, but she married a German, I don't know, duke, some aristocrat, and lived also in a German castle. But anyway, Vera sounds like Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, because you have 2 people, they meet, they fall in love, they marry, but then he had a previous wife who died. And it's all a bit mysterious, you know, how she died and what happened exactly. And it's supposed, I could tell you the story because I've read it already, because that's why I said it's kind of a reread. Something like 40 years ago in the German translation. At that time, I thought, not even realizing that it was a translation, because I thought von Arnim must be a German writer. And I want to reread it in the original. It's quite spooky. And like I said, it has these Daphne du Maurier vibes of, Rebecca. Those were the 10 books that are on my bucket list, my 2020 bucket list, and I'm not gonna try and read all of them. So again, I need your help. Make a choice, either rank them or choose one, or choose 3 books for whatever reason. Like I said in the introduction, I don't care. And I will read the 2 that received the most votes. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my version of the Mookse and Gripes bucket list. Looking forward to your voting this time and any other comments. And I'll see you all soon in the next one.